Do your consumer marketing efforts feel complicated? Experian Automotive delivers data-driven marketing solutions to find new customers and keep loyal ones. Drive measurable results with trusted data and expert support. Learn more at Experian.com/automotive.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, JLR extends its shutdown again after this month's cyber attack. California Governor Gavin Newsom says GM's Mary Barra, quote, sold us out on EV tax credits. And NHTSA's new chief says he wants to modernize safety standards. Plus, we continue our series of interviews with candidates for Michigan's open U.S. Senate seat with former Congressman Mike Rogers, who says President Trump's tariffs are working to boost U.S. manufacturing investments.
And I talked to a guy the other day. He announced that he's going to put on a second shift for the first time in 25 years. And you've never actually worked in the auto industry, you don't understand how important that is.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Jaguar Land Rover is extending the closure of its factories until October 1st. That's following a cyber attack that left JLR's operations paralyzed and smaller suppliers struggling. The automaker previously expected the production halt to end on Wednesday. JLR's factories in Britain produce about 1,000 cars a day, and the automaker is said to be losing tens of millions of pounds. There's concern about the impact of the stoppage on JLR's British supply chain, which includes many smaller companies and supports 104,000 jobs across the country. It turns out California will not backfill a $7,500 federal tax credit for buyers of electric vehicles that is set to expire this month. Governor Gavin Newsom recently reversed an earlier pledge to restart the state's own EV subsidies. Newsom's declaration all but dashes near-term hope among EV makers such as Tesla, Rivian, Hyundai, and Volkswagen that the country's largest auto market would fill that void. Those automakers and others had urged the governor and state leaders to create a $5,000 EV incentive. Newsom also took aim at the Detroit 3 automakers, saying General Motors and CEO Mary Barra, quote, sold us out. The governor argued that GM led the effort to stop California's ban on the sale of new gasoline-powered vehicles in 2035. GM declined to comment. And the nation's new top auto safety regulator says his agency should encourage industry innovation by modernizing outdated rules that add cost and roadblocks. The Senate confirmed Jonathan Morrison to lead NHTSA last week. He said at the Center for Automotive Research Management briefing seminars in Detroit that NHTSA should work to identify and update existing rules that have become antiquated through technology advancements. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. Joining me now for an update on JLR's production stoppage and the fallout from its recent cyber attack is Richard Truitt, who covers the automaker for us at Automotive News. Richard, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Good to be here, Cal.
So, Richard, how is this affecting U.S. dealers, and what does it mean for them the longer this production delay drags on?
Right now, you could go to a Jaguar Land Rover dealer and you might not think that there's anything wrong, but there's trouble brewing, big trouble. And let me tell you why. With no new vehicles coming in, the number of vehicles on the ground are going to shrink. And what does that mean? It means consumers may not be able to find the exact color and vehicle that they want. And it also means that Jaguar and Land Rover, who make a lot of money selling what they call bespoke vehicles, which are you walk into the dealer and you say, I want my Land Rover painted Madagascar orange with a purple interior. They'll build it for you. Well, they can't take those orders right now. That's the immediate effect, is that there's going to be less choice and no special orders. But there's an even bigger issue brewing out there. And that is JLR is not shipping any parts to the USA right now. If you go to a Jaguar service department, a Jaguar Land Rover service department, you'll see that they've got lots of vehicles to fix because guess what? Their quality is not real great. And so the service departments are always busy. Now, I spoke earlier today with a retired executive from JLR who's very familiar with how parts and service works at these dealerships. And he tells me that dealerships don't often stock a lot of parts. They just prefer to get overnight delivery or next day delivery and not have to invest in shelves full of parts. Right now, that's not so much of a problem, but it could very well be a problem in the future, especially if there's a recall and tens of thousands of parts are needed and they can't be shipped. Here's a picture of the inventory situation on new vehicles. According to Cloud Theory, which is a Grand Rapids-based business that tracks inventory and supply and demand, Land Rover at this very moment in time has 17,163 vehicles on the ground or in transit, down about 20% over April. Jaguar has 2,805 vehicles at dealerships or in transit, and that's down around 22% over April, which was a normal month. So the situation is okay for now, but it's not going to stay that way for a long time.
And Richard, do you think JLR could lose customers because of this?
Well, that's a question that I've been trying to get other people to answer for me. And here's the thing about that. You would think that if somebody wants a Range Rover and they can't get it, well, they'll just go buy the Bentley or whatever. But that may not be the case, because the Land Rover brand, despite the fact that it has quality issues, is people are very, very loyal to it. And I don't think that if the cyber attack situation is solved here in the next month or two, that it's going to hurt them. But if this drags on and people can't get a vehicle in a reasonable amount of time, JLR is going to be in this situation where they have to extend leases or do something else to keep customers from drifting away. I don't think it's an immediate concern, but if I'm an executive at Jaguar Land Rover right now, you better believe I'm making contingency plans.
Wow, good stuff. Richard, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome, Cal.
Coming up, former Congressman Mike Rogers joins the show to talk about his policy goals for the auto industry if he wins Michigan's open U.S. Senate seat. That's next on Daily Drive.
Are you an automotive marketer navigating today's rapidly evolving landscape? Finding new customers and nurturing existing relationships can feel like a complex journey. But what if you had a powerful engine fueled by trusted data to guide your way? That's where Experian Automotive comes in. We understand the challenges you face. Today's personalized consumer journeys demand intelligent planning and precise execution. That's why we offer the Experian Marketing Engine, a coordinated suite of data-driven solutions designed to help you develop, execute, and most importantly, measure effective marketing campaigns. At the heart of our solutions is Experian's trusted data and a dedicated automotive team committed to your success. We empower you to drive measurable results with unique data insights, including identity solutions to help you better connect with your ideal customers with greater accuracy by cleaning and enriching your first-party data. Consumer and market insights helps you gain a deeper understanding of market trends and consumer behavior, enabling you to better target consumers. Targeted audiences to help you pinpoint and target the right prospects at the right time with the right message. Better data truly connects you to better results. Stop guessing and start driving measurable impact with Experian Automotive. Ready to transform your automotive marketing? Visit Experian.com/automotive to learn how our data-driven solutions can help you find new customers, keep loyal ones, and navigate the road ahead with confidence. That's Experian.com/automotive. Take control of your marketing journey today.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. In recent weeks, our own Molly Boygon has been interviewing candidates for Michigan's open U.S. Senate seat in 2026. It's a race that could have an outsized impact on the control of Congress moving forward and policies affecting the auto industry. We've brought you interviews with Democrats Haley Stevens, Abdul El Sayed, and Mallory McMorrow. You can find all those at autonews.com. Today, we'll hear from Republican Mike Rogers, a former U.S. Congressman. Here's the first part of that conversation.
Candidate for U.S. Senate and former U.S. Representative from Michigan, Mike Rogers, thanks so much for joining us on Daily Drive.
Molly, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Congressman, you've supported President Donald Trump's tariffs on the auto industry. Can you tell us what about the tariffs you think is effective?
The most important thing about tariffs is getting back to made in America. And so what we've seen is General Motors announces after that $4 billion in investment, expanding the Orion facility right here in Michigan. Ford is coming back. Whirlpool announced it's coming back to the United States. We have other foreign companies realigning their production facilities back here to the United States. And so why is that important? We've lost 30,000 manufacturing jobs since 2019. And so when you look at that, that tells you we have a problem. And China has been eating our lunch on supply chains, on critical minerals. And so all of this helps realign to make sure that Michigan working families and American working families are manufacturing again, which is, really the backbone of the middle class. And I say that as someone who worked on a factory floor making convertibles, used to make Sebring convertibles. My brother was a UAW member. I mean, this is an important thing to me. And watching really a dwindling auto industry here in Michigan it's just hard to see. And every time we lose one of those 30,000 manufacturing jobs, guess what? That's a middle class family that's going to be struggling to stay in the middle class. And there are 5 other jobs associated with those 30,000 that pack up and leave with them. And so that's where I think that we've made tremendous progress. And we have to do it now. You cannot wait. I mean, China is moving out smartly. They're trying to capture world market, and they're doing it on, with American, consumer money. And so realigning that, I think, has been really, really important for Michigan working families and getting these jobs back, higher paying jobs, by the way.
And when you talk about foreign companies realigning manufacturing back into the US, it reminds me of the Hyundai LG battery plant immigration raid that happened a couple of weeks ago. And you have the companies and, the industry saying this was a situation where those companies feel like they need to bring in their foreign labor to complete some of the technical tasks that are required to get the plant up and running, and that this is something really common in the industry. How do you think the government can address what those companies describe as a technical expertise shortage and make sure that those jobs are going to American workers?
Yeah, well, first of all, the Trump administration said they're going to try to deal with these temporary engineering jobs for startup operations, and I think that's wholly appropriate. That they're not here, they're not permanent jobs, they don't move here and take that job forever. And so I do think having boundaries on those visas is going to be important.
And you also mentioned the unions, and I wonder if you have any concerns that the unions that have profit sharing agreements with some of the domestic manufacturers may start to feel some pain as the elimination of some profits because of the tariffs is reflected in those profit sharing checks. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, well, the good news is PPI has shown that inflation hasn't gone up. So that's the great news for working families, number one. So think of that. We're getting a realignment of better manufacturing jobs back here in the state of Michigan. That's a plus for people who get up and try to play by the rules every day. That's key. Number two, listen, if realigning away from China is the best thing they're going to do for their bottom lines. And if we re-engage in the kind of manufacturing we used to do and still can do in the great state of Michigan, guess what? That is going to be far better for any profit sharing check than we've gotten today. And watching this slow decline and atrophy as we keep sending things to be made in China, that I think is something that we can do better. And I think we are doing better. And I think that's why the unions have come out and supported some of the tariffs that President Trump is doing.
Speaking of China, Congress has eliminated tax credits benefiting domestic battery manufacturing. How do you think that will impact reliance on China for battery components?
Well, right now, we can't really build batteries without China. And so you don't want to use taxpayer dollars to reward companies for buying goods and services from China, which is exactly what's happening. And so we have got to realign our supply chains back to the United States. And so when, graphite is a great example to me. China controls 90% of graphite production. Now, it's either getting it out of the ground or processing. You can't get graphite without really going through China. And so when you give Americans, hardworking folks, taxpayer money on a program that rewards buying and purchasing from China, to me, that is absolutely the wrong answer. And so we're going through a realignment. And I think this, candidly, we should allow these automakers to buy cars that people want to buy. And this, I think, is a part of that. We is so heavily subsidized. I mean, we're giving millionaires and billionaires $7,500 to go down and buy a $120,000 or whatever electric vehicle of any sort. I don't know on what planet that makes sense to anyone. What we ought to be doing is making sure that we can compete in EVs by making that market work for the consumer. And it just doesn't today. And so I think that companies should build EVs, as I think there's a market for them. I happen to drive two in our family plug-in hybrids. And, you know, they have both pros and cons, honestly. Love it when we're just bopping around short tours around town. But when we got to drive to the UP, guess what? We need gasoline. And so that's a consumer choice that I made. I think every consumer should be able to make that choice. And the government EV mandates, which, you know, the Biden administration has just rammed down our throats. It screwed up our company's ability to plan in a 5-year or even shorter business cycle on what cars to build. That was a mess. And so giving all of these subsidies in a way that artificially made other things more expensive, I just think is wrong. So I think realigning to make sure that we do made in America, and I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's EV or plug-in hybrids, whatever that is, you know, that to me is the most important accomplishment we can get through this process. And right now, I mean, I talked to a guy the other day. He announced that he's going to put on a second shift for the first time in 25 years. And, you know, if you've never actually worked in the auto industry, you don't understand how important that is. Now, this isn't a big union shop. It's a smaller shop that is getting more domestic auto companies looking for ways to build it in America. That's a win. And I just don't think we do it by spending our money, encouraging that money to be sent to China or other places around the world.
Before we turn more to the EV part of the conversation, I just want to try and nail something down. There's been a little bit of sort of mixed messaging from the Trump administration about whether the tariffs are aimed at permanently reshoring domestic manufacturing and therefore that the tariffs themselves are permanent, or whether they're a temporary bargaining chip that the administration is using to garner better trade deals, better arrangements for the duty that Americans pay. Do you see the tariffs as permanent?
I think he's working through that. I think we've seen that the president gave some auto exceptions in that first tariff. I think he understands that in order to reshore for American jobs, this needs to be a part of that discussion. And remember where we are today. So you have no appreciative inflation. Matter of fact, it's down, 0.1%. And that means working families not paying more for that. And we have this massive investment happening in the United States. General Motors alone, $4 billion. And by the way, it's these American companies calling those small shops, like the guy that had second shift for the first time in 25 years, because they're reshoring and trying to build back here in America. So I just think we have to let this thing go. We have to give them some rope here to let these things work. And they're working so far for people who want those middle-class jobs so that we can kind of stay. We don't have to tell our kids here in Michigan they have to leave to find good work. We can do it here. The way that it's going about it is going to allow better jobs here in Michigan. And oh, by the way, we can also be back into the notion that we're building for our defensive industrial base, which we lost years ago. We ought to reclaim that. Michigan was the arsenal of democracy. I think it can be again. And one way to do it is encourage this alignment to people building things in Michigan.
Republican former Congressman Mike Rogers spoke with our own Molly Boygan. You can hear the rest of that interview on our upcoming bonus episode of Daily Drive, which will be available Sunday morning. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Richard Truitt and Lindsay Van Hully for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on tariffs and trade, JLR cyber attack and production shutdown, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow for a conversation with experts about the state of U.S. tariffs and their impacts on the global auto industry from this month's Automotive News Congress.
That's our message to suppliers is you need to set up your decision and your strategic planning process to include guideposts to say, if this decision happens, I think we can go ahead with this decision. And it can't just be once a year. It's got to be monthly or quarterly.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.